What's up, everyone? Welcome to Cheesehead TV. Aaron Nagler here with your Packers Daily Chat. It's the Monday of Combine Week. I leave for Indianapolis bright and early tomorrow morning. We'll hear from Brian Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur on Wednesday. The prospects will start going through the paces, so to speak, later this week. Always good to see everybody in the chat. Hello, what's happening? Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Wherever you are on the internet, that's where we want to be. Cheesehead TV, we're devoted to you guys, Green Bay Packers fans worldwide. Any news on Cobb? A lot of questions about Cobb on the old internet today. He's set to be a free agent. There have been no reported talks between the Packers and Cobb's representatives. I fully expect him to hit the market. We'll see what happens here in the next couple weeks. $3 million for Clay Matthews. Why not, right? I thought Tom Silverstein had a good piece up at PackersNews.com this morning going through making cases to let guys go or keep them, and he put Clay in the keep them category. I thought he made some good notes there. I think it makes sense if they can get him for something around that number. I tend to think Clay will want to hit the market and see what he can get. And if he doesn't find something he likes, maybe the Packers welcome him back on a team-friendly deal. $3 million? I'd pull the trigger on that. When does free agency begin? Well, technically March 13th. The quote-unquote legal tampering window begins 2 days prior to that. The actual beginning of free agency, for all practical purposes, begins this week in Indianapolis with the Combine. It's when you'll have lots of agents and personnel people in the same vicinity, and lots of tampering, real tampering goes on. So lots of talks will start this week. And you'll start to hear things on the Packers pending free agents, probably starting tomorrow, if not tomorrow, then Wednesday. But yeah, this is the week all things really kind of start to ramp up. But the actual beginning of free agency officially is March 13th. Will LaFleur get after Rodgers if he looks past open wide receivers? Whew, that's a loaded question. Of course, there have to be open wide receivers for him to look past. That's a question that only time will tell. I doubt it'll ever be the case where he'll, quote unquote, get after him in a classic sense. Classic, maybe, image you have in your head of a football coach getting after a player. Aaron Rodgers is a completely different animal than just your average Joe. Now that said, Aaron has said repeatedly he wants to be coached. He accepts hard coaching. We'll see if that's the dynamic that LaFleur wants to go after. I doubt it. I think it'll be much more of a partnership. Nasir Adderley or Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. I really like Gardner-Johnson's versatility. I don't know quite yet. Give me some more time to look at those two on tape. But first blush, I'd say Gardner-Johnson. Antonio Brown or running back Bell more likely to be a Packer? I keep getting a variation of this question, and I'll be shocked if either one of them is a Packer. Nags, are you there? Am I where? Here? Existing? In my space? Yes. Am I in Indianapolis? No. I leave tomorrow. What do you think about Marquez saying they have the best group of wide receivers? Kent, you like the confidence. Obviously, they've got to prove it on the field, but hell, I want my guys saying that they're the best and have that confidence. There's tons of talent. There's tons of potential in that room. Just has to get realized. Best guess on wide receiver 2 if they don't get anyone in free agency, assuming they re-sign Allison and let Cobb go. Hillary, I would say to start the season, most likely it'll be Geronimo still until either MVS or EQ kind of make their case, so to speak, as the year wears on. It's not to say that it couldn't come to camp and all of a sudden MVS or EQ or even Kumaro make some kind of big jump and end up in the starting lineup that week 1 game. But first blush, considering what the parameters you just laid out, I would say Geronimo is probably your best bet to be wide receiver 2 as things stand right now. Going to eat at that famous steak place in Indy? I think you're probably talking about St. Elmo's. Yeah, I usually make a visit once per year, and probably happen at some point this week. Let's see. Will you be at the press conference with Gutekunst and LaFleur? Yes, Stephen, I will be. Wednesday morning, bright and early, will be Gutekunst, and then LaFleur is later in the day on Wednesday. So I will be there for both of those. Media has gone completely overboard with the AB to GB talk. Let me show you my mentions, sir. You guys are the ones who've gone completely overboard. And I don't mean you, obviously, Alex. But the media goes overboard because the fans talk about it ad nauseum. I can't go 5 minutes without somebody asking me about it online. Don't blame the media. The media gives you guys what you want. And by far, the biggest thing being talked about either on my mentions, in my Facebook messages, in my inbox, is AB to the Packers. Don't lay it on the media. Blame your fellow fans. Thank you. Will LaFleur really stick with the running game? Just look at New Orleans. They balanced their offense and got the D markedly got better. Will he really stick with the running game? I think so. I take him at his word when he says everything's going to be predicated off that zone running scheme. He comes out of the Shanahan system, which is very much dependent on getting the running game going. Everything flows off of that, whether it's the play action game, the boot game. That goes back to Shanahan's father, his time in the league. It's very much predicated on getting the running game going. Everything kind of flows from that. I take him at his word. I mean, we'll see. Maybe he gets in the midst of it, and Aaron Rodgers is pulling the trigger, and all of a sudden it becomes a pass-happy thing. But I can only imagine that they're going to try and get that running game to a spot where it makes everything easier for Aaron Rodgers. Because to me, that's what that system has done pretty successfully throughout time. Is help. I mean, you don't have to go any further than Shanahan's time in Denver with John Elway, who had been to a number of Super Bowls, couldn't get over the hump, looked like he was going to finish his career without winning any. And those last couple of years, he gets a running game, he gets Terrell Davis, and he wins 2 going out. And I'm not saying Aaron Rodgers is going to, is destined to follow that path, but that's the blueprint. Take some of that load off of him. Don't make it so quarterback dependent. Ride that running game as much as you can. Thoughts on Burns and Sweat? Yeah, man, it's hard for me to get past the Burns association when it comes to Jamal Reynolds, the smaller guy from Florida State, etc. But that's a ridiculous comparison. I know that one has nothing to do with the other. It's just where my brain automatically goes. That said, if you look at his tape, it's intriguing. He's got a variety of moves, and I think in a way that some guys maybe coming out of the college ranks don't. He seems to be very mature, has a lot of kind of tools in his toolbox as a pass rusher, and that's intriguing. You look at Sweat, he's a bit stiffer as an athlete. He's obviously very strong. I worry that he's kind of Nick Perry 2.0 a little bit, but I think he's maybe a little bit more athletic than Perry was coming out. I don't think, I'd be interested to see how these guys test this week in Indy, if they do indeed test. So a lot of information yet to be gathered, but I'm intrigued by both. I love you guys. Next, do you like horror movies or just sci-fi? Good question. I prefer sci-fi, but I like a good horror movie, although most of the jump cut bullshit that they do now is just kind of yawn-inducing. It's kind of, there's a formula in place for a lot of modern horror. I like psychological horror a lot more. Classic, obviously, being The Shining. I love Seven because you never really saw anything. It was all implied, and your imagination is 10 times stronger than any jump cut could ever be. So that's just me. Let's head over to Twitter, where we hopefully get back to football. Keith starts us off with watching some AAF games. There is a larger drop-off in quality of play of the offensive line versus other positions. Is the pool of quality NFL linemen smaller than other positions? Should the Packers use the higher draft picks on linemen? Keith, that's a really good observation, and I would tend to agree with you that the drop-off is very noticeable talent-wise. that doesn't necessarily mean you have to use higher picks on linemen. Is the pool of quality offensive linemen, smaller than other positions? I would say yes, and you've seen that play out throughout the league. I actually talked with David Bakhtiari about that on my podcast last year, where the dip in play along the line all throughout the league is very noticeable. Now, the Packers have done a really good job of finding players later in the draft, so I don't think it's necessary that you have to draft one earlier. You just have to be good at identifying them. Now, who was doing that identifying before? Was it people who were already in the building? Is it guys who moved over to Cleveland? I mean, those are things that I guess we'll have to watch play out. But I don't think you necessarily have to draft guys high, but if the value is there, I don't think you should shy away from it at all. I like to think we can build the defense in the draft, but if there is a running back there, do we take them like when Lacey was drafted, or they go position of need over a luxury? Hope that made sense. Love the content. Cheesehead TV is the best. Ryan, thank you very much for saying so. Yeah, I think if the value is there, you mentioned Lacey, the whole reason they drafted him is because they thought the value was too good to pass up. They had him ranked, however you want to call it, as a day one prospect, as a first round value. He was there later in the second round. The value to them was too good to pass up. And that would not surprise me at all. If a guy like, say, David Montgomery, that would be my dream scenario. If he fell late into day two, the Packers pulling the trigger on Montgomery, I would love that. He's my favorite back in this draft. I don't think he's going to be the first one off the board. But something along those lines, that kind of type of scenario, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility at all. I know it is a little early, but I need a scope on a few guys you think are ones to watch in the later rounds who could be hidden gems. One name I keep seeing is Logan Hunt from Georgia Southern. Matthew, I'd be lying if I said I'd done a ton of work on Logan Hunt, or any of the small school guys who maybe later round gems, as you term the phrase. Ask me again after the combine. Next week I'll have a better handle on a lot of the kind of projects, so to speak. But this week, I'm very much in the rounds 1 through 3 range. What combine drills should fans pay more attention to than the 40-yard dash? Michael, the number one for me is the 3-cone drill. It's a real good indicator of flexibility and athleticism in general. Anything under a 7 should pique your interest. Obviously, there's lots of kind of correlations. Justice Mosqueda has done a great job in the past on Cheesehead TV, breaking down the types of guys that the Packers have looked at athletic testing-wise. I'm sure he'll be posting again this year. But the 3-cone drill is the one you really want to pay attention to, for my money. Let's head back over to the live chat. Let's see what's up. I like to see a feed of Grossi, Nags, and Banky played the board game Diplomacy. Now that is some hot content ideas. Tom Grossi in here talking junk. Ha, Grossi, you waited until Nagler turned his attention to Twitter. Interesting, David, isn't it? Should Gutekunst go all in to get Josh Allen? No. If you're up with the 30th pick and you have Hawkinson or Fant on the board, who do you got? Hawkinson all day, every day. If he's available at 30 and the Packers don't pick him, I may resign and protest. Okay, that's hyperbole. But Hawkinson is to me, I'll quote Daniel Jeremiah. He's the cleanest prospect in this draft. I mean, you just plug him in and get excellent play at the tight end position for a decade. I'm all in on that. When is the grudge match between you and Grossi happening, Nags? A couple weeks down the line. We'll nail down a date. We've been emailing. It'll happen. How can you not get excited about AB? See? People asking about AB. That's not the media asking. It's a fan on a chat live. We're not making this up. Oh, and how can I not get excited about AB? The contract, what it would take to get him, most likely. Locker room issues, off the field issues. You package it all together. It ain't for me, dog. That's just me. How many chats this week, Ron? Dustin, I'm going to try and be on every day. I won't obviously be a studio setup, but I'll be on either Facebook or YouTube or both throughout the Combine each and every day, giving you guys content throughout the week. It's Combine time, man. Time to step it up. Andy Isabella in the second. Woo! I mean, I'd love it. I'd love him on the team. Second, maybe late. We'll see. Get excited for OBJ instead. I'm fully on board with OBJ, and I explained that last week. I'd love that. I don't think the Giants will really move him, but when Jay Glazer's out here predicting that he's going to get moved, my ears perk up. Oh, Michael Crabtree or no? Matt, I said on Twitter, I give it a maybe, which I got some pushback on. And look, whenever I'm doing the yes, no, maybe on Twitter, I am, I'm reacting to how I think the Packers view it. And with Crabtree, he's older. He's possibly maybe just a red zone threat at this time. But look, when he was coming out, he was the number one player on their board. If Gutekunst was a part of that think tank, so to speak, maybe he still loves him. Maybe he goes after him. He's gone after Ricky Jean-Francois after a couple of years of trying to get him. They signed Byron Bell after a year of trying to get him. There are guys that you have your eye on and you track throughout their careers, and you've always wanted to get him on your team. Maybe Crabtree is of that ilk for Gutekunst. I don't know. Like I said, I wouldn't sign him. Maybe the Packers do. I doubt it, but maybe. In all caps, Devin comes roaring in. So who would you personally want to see Green Bay pick up first? Hockenson, really. He's probably my dream selection in the first round. I don't care if he's at 12, at 30, if I got to pick somebody else at 12 and then trade up from 30. I want Hockenson in a Green Bay Packers uniform. Let's see. Can teams tag a player and then trade him to ensure they don't lose them for nothing? Yeah, sure. The Packers did that years ago with a guy they traded to Cleveland whose name is escaping me at the moment. A first and a fourth for OBJ. Would you do it, Mike, in a heartbeat? Stewie, I'm tired of Packers taking a defensive back in the first round. Well, you got 2 chances for them to do it this time. I don't see it happening, but you can't dismiss it out of hand. If that's the best value on the board, we'll see. All right, everybody, I'm going to have to jump, but I will be back tomorrow and each and every day this week from Indianapolis. Make sure you're liking, subscribing, sharing, telling your friends, telling your family. Cheesehead TV, we're everywhere you want to be on the internet. We're dedicated to Packers fans worldwide. Thanks a lot, everyone. Have a great night.